Hello, dear students. Welcome back to my online class. Today, the topic of my discussion is P.B. Shelley as a poet. Basically, it's a kind of introduction to Shelley and his personal and poetic life and his contributions to history of English literature. I think it will help you to understand my next class, that is, to the West Wind. P.B. Shelley is one of the major popular English romantic poets at par with Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Keats. In his short life of almost 30 years, he left an indelible mark in the history of English literature. Shelley was born in 1792, immediately after the French Revolution, in an aristocratic family in Horsham, Sussex, in England. He is the eldest son of Sir Timothy Shelley, and Whig a member of Parliament, and his wife, Elizabeth Pilfold. Shelley received his early education at home. In 1810, he passed his matriculation from Oxford University College. Unorthodox in his ideas and a fierce denouncer of political and monarchical power, as well as a advocate of liberty. He started his writings early in life, and he anonymously published a pamphlet called "The Necessity of Atheism" in 1811, which caused his expulsion from the University of Oxford. However, in 1811, the same year, a 19-year-old Shelley escaped to Scotland with a 16-year-old girl, Elizabeth Westbrook, whom he married later. But their marriage proved utterly disappointing and unhappy. In 1840, Shelley abandoned Harriet for his new relationship with Mary Shelley, the daughter of philosopher William Godwin. And Mary Shelley was also the writer of famous novel Frankenstein. In 1816, immediately after the death of Harriet, or suicide of Harriet, he married his next wife, Mary Shelley. So Shelley's personal life was full of bitterness and anxiety. So was his personal dream-like world, or idealistic revolutionary world, yet to be realized. So utterly disappointed in life and dissatisfied with the social practice, he left England and traveled to Italy, where on 8th July 1822 he got drowned while returning from Leghorn, Italy, in his sailing boat Don Juan. Now, let me talk about Shelley's heart and mind. We know he was radical in his philosophical and political and social views, as well as in his poetry. So he became a man of disputes and controversial person at that time. Hence, most publishers and journals denied to publish his works in fear of being arrested on the charge of either blasphemy and sedition. Shelley's political and non-conformist attitude were largely shaped by the ideals of the French Revolution. In the time he was nurtured and brought and inculcated these ideals, and of course the political theories of William Godwin. As a poet, he was personally influenced by William Wordsworth and other visionary writers and poets, including Byron, Keats, Leigh Hunt, and his second wife, Mary Shelley. Shelley's political and social thought had an impact on the Chartist and other movements in England. Chartist movement was the working class movement for their democratic right, including their voting power. However, Shelley's theories of economics and morality, for example, had a profound influence on Karl Marx. Even his early writings on nonviolent resistance influenced Leo Tolstoy, whose writings on the subject in turn influenced Mahatma Gandhi, and through him Martin Luther King Jr. during American Civil War movement. Henry David Thoreau's book Civil Disobedience, written in 1849, apparently shows the influence of Shelley's writings and theories on nonviolence in protest and political action. Shelley became a very influential figure among the Victorians, especially to Robert Browning and D.Z. Rossetti. And among his admirers, mention must be made about Leo Tolstoy, George Bernard Shaw, W.B. Yeats, and Oscar Wilde, and so many others. So Shelley's popularity and influence continue to grow even in today's poetical world. And now let me talk about Shelley's art and works, literary achievements. Shelley started writing very early in his life, and but his first major works include Queen Maeve, written in 1813. This was followed by another philosophical books like Alastair, The Spirit of Solitude, written in 1815. And subsequently, he wrote the books like The Revolt of Islam in 1818 and another magnum opus, the famous book entitled Prometheus Unbound, written and published in 1818 and 1819. It's a book about Prometheus who stole fire from gods for mankind, so for which he was punished. So this spirit of revolution is there. The next book, Sensei, 1819, it's a birdstormer. And the next book is Mask of Anarchy in 1819. And in the meantime, he wrote lots of number of lyrics and odes, including mainly his best one is The Ode to the West Wind, written in 1819 and published in 1821. And another book is The Ode to Skylark, 1820, The Cloud. Among his political poems like England in 1819, published in 1821. Another major book of Shelley is Adonis. It was written in 1821. It's a book on the sad memory of the death of the kids. It's a pastoral elegy. Another last important books, that is a critical works, is The Defense of Poetry, written in 1821. Where he defends all the groups of poets, and he says that poets are unacknowledged legislators of the world. Okay, now let me talk about Shelley's poetic features. What are the major characteristics of Shelley's poetry? We know Shelley's poetry is marked by lyricism. So Shelley is widely regarded as one of the finest lyrical poets. His lyricism is imbued with universalism. His personal anguish and personal pangs and pains somewhere get attuned with the voice of the people of the all over the world. He is a democratic and an advocate of liberty. He inculcated a revolutionary viewpoints and philosophy. So this revolutionary radical philosophy makes him a visionary poet. He dreams of a new millennium based on the ideals of French Revolution. So this world will be absolutely free from evil and injustice. This makes him a very idealist poet also. But his idealism has dual facets. One is revolutionary, another is metaphysical. His revolutionary ideals were largely shaped and based on the democratic ideals of the French Revolution. And his metaphysical idealism is largely based on the Platonic concept of beauty and joy. According to Plato, beauty and joy in this real world is not possible. And seeking this kind of things like beauty and joy in this world will lead to the path of pain and suffering only, because the real world itself is a pale shadow of the ideal world. That's why the inhabitants of this ideal world can sing eternally without being hesitated, without being interrupted, like the skylark. So we see that skylark sings continuously, whereas the poet, the people, the man of this real world cannot sing. Rather, he cries out, quote, "I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed," unquote. In spite of all these things, he emerges as an optimistic poet. Though it is said that he's a very pessimistic, but actually he's a poet of hope and aspiration. Matthew Arnold considers him very pessimistic. He says that Shelley is a beautiful and ineffectual angel beating in the void, his luminous wings, but in vain, unquote. In fact, Shelley is pessimistic, no doubt, but about the present world, about the present system, but optimistic about the future. That's why he escapes to the world of the future, when he will establish a new society, an ideal society, and on the ideals of revolutionary philosophy. According to Kachemian, a critic, the tone of Shelley's poetry is that of keen aspiration, as found in the concluding line of Shelley's beautiful poem, Ode to the West Wind. Shelley is a myth maker. Mythophoic elements characterizes his poem. He, like the old Greeks, personifies objects of nature and describes their activities in terms of human passion and action. Unlike Wordsworth and Keats, Shelley intellectualizes nature. He makes nature an instrument to scatter his ideals and explains why man cannot attain perfect joy. It's because he's highly imaginative. He brings us to the world of skylark, for example, and also he presents nature, for example, west wind, as a destroyer and preserver. To talk about his style, Shelley's style is very simple, flexible, and passionate. It has a direct clarity and striking lucidity, as well as purity of language, followed by a spontaneity of expression. Shelley's poetry is marked by easy use of or employment of the images. His imagery or images is drawn from the imaginary and intangible world in order to describe the tangible and the real. And say, for example, the west wind has been depicted as a what should I say, destroyer and preserver. It can create as well as it can destroy. So it is possible because of his highly imaginative power that makes his use of images more striking and beautiful. So while talking about all these aspects, we should not forget the limitations of Shelley as a poet. One of the limitations is that his theories is too revolutionary, and his ideas, his ideal world is someone that cannot be achieved. Just like the human being cannot achieve the ideal world because of the limitations of the real world. And his poems are too serious, that's why it lacks in humor, characteristic features of any good literature that is absent in Shelley's writings. Now, to conclude, we should say that Shelley's poetry is marked with the subjective or the lyrical appeal, the emotional fervor, and of course there is sweeping imagination and prophetic vision and passionate idealism, and finally last word, that is the unfailing optimism and so on. So this is all for the moment. I think this will help you to understand my next class, that is Ode to the West Wind. Okay, thank you.